Welcome back to It's Not Just a Tuesday, the podcast where we talk about work and life and the stories that connect all of us. I am thrilled to be here today with Michael Spehn, right?
Spain, like
Spain.
like
Oh,
the country.
okay. I've heard a lot of people say your name wrong then because
Yes,
that is a tricky one. Well, and
5 little letters that have
yeah,
confounded a nation.
that is funny. Yeah, it's the reason I hyphenated Walker and Leidy because Walker's very easy to figure out.
Yes.
Leidy, not so much. But I'm here with Michael, who has just got such a cool story to share and some new things that he's doing that I said, you got to come on and just share a little bit of that with at least the, 20 people who might hear this podcast along the way. So thanks for being here with me today. And I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here.
Awesome. So I want to start by just letting you talk to me about just who you are, some of your journey. Catch us up a little bit on how you got to where you are. I know your story. I know a lot of other people know your story, but I think stories are always worth telling again. And so share with us a little bit about just your journey and professional and just what makes you you.
Sure. Well, like so many people, when you live long enough, you have a lot of things happen to you, and you get the chance to um, see life from all new perspectives at different seasons. And so, um, I born and raised in Chicago, and met my wife Kathy in Chicago. We had 3 children. God blessed us with 3 beautiful, healthy children. And then when she was just 37, I lost Kathy to cancer. So I was a single dad for a couple of years with 3 kids under the age of 9. And that, boy, I didn't know what I didn't know. That was quite an experience, as you might imagine,
Yeah.
in so many different ways. But then my path crossed with a woman named Gina, who had just lost her husband to cancer as well. And we got our 5 kids together, formed a little Brady Bunch, Rochester, Michigan version.
Yeah.
And so we've been together now 17 years. We've raised our children together. Um, when we were really in the midst of grief together, and beginning to sort of blend our families, we we're both people who have who faith is a very important part of our lives, and so our faith was really calling us to turn some of our experience, some of our pain into purpose, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we created a nonprofit charity called the New Day Foundation for Families. And this was designed to provide resources to families who were going to experience exactly what we had just.
Yeah.
When someone gets a cancer diagnosis, it is earthquake to their families in so many different ways. And so we decided to try and bring hope to some of those families. And quite honestly and sort of selfishly, that allowed us to channel some of our grief into more positive and more
Yeah.
um, action oriented generosity, and really helped in our own healing. So that began in 2007, and which was just a wonderful time to ask people for money. If you remember,
Yeah,
2007 and 8.
that was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, little did we know, but we've been blessed, and God's provided for us each year, and so we started to grow that, and we had some experiences in the early days of our foundation that really led us to believe that there was an opportunity for us to write down some of what we experienced, mostly for the sake of our own children, who were very young, 4 years old, 6 years old, when their parents passed away.
Yeah.
And so we decided to write down some of our experiences, some of our thoughts, that ultimately found its way to a publisher, HarperCollins Zondervan. That became a New York Times best-selling book. And then ultimately that book was turned into a Hallmark motion picture. At the time, the highest rated Hallmark motion picture in history, which was kind of cool.
Wow, yeah.
Um, all of that was particularly good because it really put a spotlight on the nonprofit that
Right.
we had started and the work and the mission that we were doing there. And so that was able to grow nicely through some of those experiences. Um, so that kind of propels us forward. Ultimately, my wife runs our foundation on a day-to-day basis and runs it in a spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
She is a rock star. There's no question about that. I have a day job, so to speak. My normal career is in finance, and so I help people grow and protect their own assets so that they can live generous lives in their own world.
Yeah.
And through it all, we the raising of five children is a unique experience, but unfortunately, in 2015, our 14-year-old son Sam was diagnosed with brain cancer as well. He was given 3 to 6 months to live,
Yeah.
and literally um, 3 days ago on Monday,
I saw that on Facebook that
he marks 9 years from his original diagnosis. He's been written up in medical journals as one of the 1% that actually get to survive this sort of ordeal. And so we couldn't be more thankful to God for giving him that life and that opportunity. But through all of those experiences and many more, I've come to recognize that, in my opinion, first of all, I don't know how people navigate these waters, because my life, the life I've led, and I've left obviously much and much out,
of
but
course.
it's not unique. Everyone goes through hardships, challenges, loss. So I don't mean to say in any regard that what we've experienced, what I've gone through, is unique in any way. But I have come to recognize. First of all, I don't know how people do it without faith in their
Yeah.
lives. I'm baffled by that, and I'm thankful that my parents instilled in me early on a foundation of faith, and then that was um, enhanced and further educated as I grew older by some very generous uh, biblical scholars that I had a chance to spend time with.
Oh, very cool.
So that's been a blessing to me. But how that faith has manifested in the most positive ways is through acts of generosity,
Hmm.
and those can come in tiny, small, sublime ways, or they can come in great, grand gestures.
Yeah.
Right? Some people write millions of dollars in checks to endow their university.
Yeah.
Some people travel to Africa to build wells, water wells for people. Some people are simply kind to the checkout person at the Kroger. Some people are kind and generous to their coworkers or to their neighbors or to their own family. Whatever whatever path you're on, if you're on a path of generosity, it feeds the soul in ways that are incalculable. I believe that the saving grace, or the earthly manifestation of God's grace, has come through acts of generosity that I've been on the receiving end of,
Yeah.
and generosity that I've been able to express to others.
Yeah. That's so beautiful, and it thank you for sharing so much of your story. I mean, I think you're right. We all have our version of the things that we walk through in life. And it really always is. I have a good friend, and her and I always say grief, trauma, it's not a competition, right?
Right.
And but in the same way, generosity, it's not a competition. All of those things are big to you in that moment or small to you in that moment and impact you in great ways. And it's that response, right? It's that
Yeah.
way that we decide, okay, this is what has happened. This is where life is, good or bad.
Yeah.
Um, what's my job here? What do
Yeah.
I do here? How do I make this okay for me and okay for someone else,
Right.
and all of that. So I think I've been able to kind of watch you all's journey. We have some mutual friends, and I think that it really is that perfect vision of, I this my saying, life sucks, God's good, we're gonna be fine. This
Says
is,
it all right there. Says it all.
like
You
that's
don't
it,
need me to go on any further. End of podcast.
right? Because to me, and whatever, to your point, I feel similar, right? I have a faith that grounds me when other things can't, and I know that other people have those things, right? And so I think it's so important to have faith in something. I feel lucky, like you do, that I have faith in something that is really good and
Yeah.
bigger than me,
Yeah.
and that I know in my heart will work for me in the end, and carry me through.
Yeah, and you said it the best. I think it's grounding, it's foundational, it's literally biblical. We are able to stand on the rock rather than on the sand, right? And so for sure, it's not a competition, as you say. No one's loss is greater or less than anyone else's.
Right.
Um, I know people who've gone through divorces that are just painful and horrific. I was a child of divorce, so I know a little bit about that. Or people who have lost children versus lost spouses or parents. Um, there's no way to quantify it greater than or less than.
Yeah.
And one of the smartest things anybody said. So when our book came out, we when you write a book, people tend to think that you have something to say now, and so they invite you to speak in a lot of places. You're still the same person before
Right.
the book came
We
out, but
do
now
so.
they think, oh, we got to have them come. Anyway, we've been invited to speak a lot of places, and somebody early on, as we were beginning to do that, they said to me, never underestimate the pain in the room.
Mm,
When you're speaking to large audiences or small, you have no idea what any of these people are going through or have just gone through. There may be people in the second row who just got a cancer diagnosis. There may be somebody in the back row who is in the midst of a painful divorce or a foreclosure or a bankruptcy or whatever it is.
yeah.
And so what they're trying to do for me was to put me in a mood of, first of all, you're not alone, you're not special, right? And second of all, have grace for these people, have understanding for these people. I can't tell you the number of people. The other thing that people do when you write a book is they ask you for your to sign it, and so people will line up, and it's very lovely. Every single person that comes through lines to get books signed, every single one of them has a story and want to tell you, my brother-in-law this, my
Yep.
sister that. And so, by the way, I'll offer you a little trick here. It's not a trick, but it's an act of kindness, I believe. One thing I learned early on, when someone shares something with you about somebody they've lost, ask them their name.
Mm.
Please tell me your brother's name. Oh, it was Jim.
Um,
First of all, they desperately want to say Jim's name out loud.
yeah.
They want to speak their names.
Yep.
Second of all, it just shows such care and love that. Tell me about Jim. What was he, a music lover? Did he love sports? What? Just tell me something about your sister, your mother, and say their name out loud. And I can't tell you how it changes their whole day.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true, because the memory gets to be, they're there, right? That person is there, and that moment is a moment that they can bring them back into their story,
Yep.
right? That I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing that we miss often,
Yeah.
is that person being in the story now.
Right.
you know,
Right.
and
To
so
keep them present tense.
yeah, yeah,
That was a very intentional thing that Gina, my wife, and I did. She lost her husband Matt. I lost my wife Kathy, and especially in the early days when we blended our family and we all got under one roof, there are photos of both of them. There are home movies. They're
it's
they're
beautiful.
spoken about in this is Kathy's favorite song.
Yeah,
Drops of Jupiter would come on, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's Kathy's favorite song."
I love that.
And so we were able to give permission to each other, um, not formally, just by living. I got to still be in love with Kathy, and Gina got to
Yeah,
still be in love with Matt. And that never changes. It's 17 years later, and those things are still true. And those in themselves are acts of generosity.
yeah. Well, and I think it is a really good reminder of just how big love is,
Yes.
right? You know, there's always that moment when you don't think you could love anymore.
Yeah.
And but one love doesn't change because new love comes. We just grow and we can
So
expand.
I wrote in our book, The Color of Rain. So my wife, Kathy, had a saying, you grow a new heart.
Hmm.
And what she meant was, our oldest daughter was born, and then we had a second child. And you think you can't ever love anything
Right,
more than you love your firstborn.
right.
Then you have a second child, and you think, well, how's this going to work, right? Or in the case of like Gina and I loved Kathy. She was the love of my life, right? And then she died, and a couple of years later, I now am marrying Gina. Well, how in the world, right? Well, Kathy used to say, you grow a new heart, and God fills that up with love for them.
Yeah,
Love is not a zero sum game.
right.
If it's real, if it's godly love, it's ever expanding. And you don't have to steal love from this person in order to give it to
Yeah,
this new person.
yeah.
And that's one of the discernments of, is this real, or is this sort of just
Oh, that's so
infatuation?
good. Yes.
Is it expansive love? Is it connecting love?
Mhm.
Does it grow your family and your friends and your world, or does it steal from other people?
Yeah. Well, and I think, now is such a great time in all of our lives, right? We've all had a year, right? Or maybe even had 4 years that feel like tough and a lot of new kinds of tough and some hard things that we really thought we wouldn't have to go through again
Yeah,
collectively, even just as a country, right?
yeah,
And so I think those are the moments where you think, man, I don't know if I can let somebody in. I don't know if I can trust those
right.
people in our lives. And I have seen that the people in my life that are that true love, right? My husband and others, right? Those are the folks that they help me grow. My love grows because of them,
Yeah.
right? That's the fruit piece of it, right? Like I'm able to
Yes.
do more because I'm empowered by their love growing for me. And I think that is exactly what you say about the generosity piece, right?
Yeah. If
Um,
love, if if this relationship, and I don't care if it's a relationship with a job, a relationship with a romantic partner, a
yeah,
relationship with a country,
yeah,
is does this relationship connect you to the things that are important to you? Does it connect you to your faith, your God? Does it connect you to your family better in
mhm,
new ways? Does it connect you to yourself and what you've always valued? Or does it, in small ways, erode and disconnect you
mhm,
from that? A
yeah,
lot of people get confused and they start to see that and they go, well, they're just taking me in a new direction. Well, that's fine if they're expanding your world,
yeah,
but if they're disconnecting you from yourself, from your values, from your God, from your family, then you might want to take a second look at that.
yeah,
But but when it comes to some of the fear, the anxiety that we have, whether it be on a macro level with politics, or with community, or whatever, the fears that come from pandemics and economics and other things, or whether it's just in small ways with work relationships, or with sibling relationships as we get to adulthood, people struggle with how do I respond in a loving way, in a way that I want to respond, but how do I respond to tension? How do I respond to
Yeah.
fear, to anxiety? One of the great, weapons, if you will, one of the great tools that's a little more positive is our acts of generosity.
Yeah.
Um, there's there's a million sayings, kill them with kindness and everything, but they don't know. A lot of people don't know what to do with that. Okay, I'll be kind. Well, you can be kind verbally, you can be kind physically, you can be kind
Yep.
spiritually. The Italians have a great saying that is one of my new favorites over the last couple of years: "L'eco di piccolo gentilezze,"
Okay.
the echo of small kindnesses.
Wow.
And people hear small kindnesses, but I think the really critical part of the "L'eco di piccolo gentilezze"
Oh,
is the "Lecco" part,
yeah.
because it isn't just that your kindness is going to go out into the world; it's going to echo back
Going.
to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
David McCullough once said, uh, the great and curious truth of life is that selflessness is the greatest thing you can do for yourself.
Hmm.
Because when we think about, Simon Sinek has this thing about where if you go and drop in a quarter in the jar at the 7-Eleven, right? You don't tell anybody about that. You just do that and you move on. But if you spend a weekend building Habitat for Humanity, you're going to tell somebody about that, how you spent your weekend. Because you're going to feel so good about it.
Right.
You just feel, and it's not pride.
Right.
It's a sense of I've been valued this weekend.
Yeah.
I did something of value and I shared my personal value with these people.
Right. Right.
And we are fed. I mean, we're designed by our creator with the so-called happy hormones, right? Serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin.
Right.
They flood our central nervous system when we do acts of kindness to others.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the whole reason that I wanted to do this, right?
Yes.
Is because, I really do believe in the core of who I am that the more we all just talk to each other,
Yeah.
the better life will be.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's, even looking at what you said about, what Simon Sinek said about the quarter or the Habitat for Humanity, you know, it's those kindnesses. If we recognize the big and the small, right? If a quarter is all you have and you
Right.
drop that in and you are allowed to celebrate it and you are allowed to share that as being a big moment for you. Now, same as asking someone their name, right? Now you got to let it be part of your story.
Right.
And you put it out into the world so that someone else will think about when they drop a quarter in
Yeah.
the wait, I've never even noticed that bin was there for quarters, right?
Right.
We
Right.
elevate the opportunity to give, and we elevate how to give, and we elevate how to receive. It's so
And that's
in that I'm passionate about this.
it's a beautiful thing that you decide to do this to give forum to those thoughts and to those expressions, right? Whether they come from people like me or from anybody else you have in here, because there's a psalm in the Christian Bible that is important to me, Psalm 30, and it was written by King David, and he had lived a very broken life, and God had restored him time and time again. And he wrote, "You've turned my mourning into dancing. You've removed my sackcloth of ashes and clothed me in joy, so that my heart might sing your praises and not be silent."
Yeah.
And when we when we all collectively decide to write books or to do podcasts or to accept invitations to come share our experiences in life through speeches, this is our way of, it's mine anyway, of not being silent,
Yes.
because we have been blessed with, we've been entrusted with challenges,
Yeah.
and we've been blessed with outcomes that afford us to live in this part of the world and be
Yeah.
warm and safe. I've got a fire going
Oh,
here, and right.
beautiful. Yeah.
So we've been challenged in life, but we've been entrusted with those challenges.
Yeah.
And we've used the gifts that we've been entrusted with to overcome them and learn from them, and then it's up to us to not be silent
Yes.
and encourage one another to continue to be kind, to continue to be generous to one another
Yeah.
in every way we can.
Yeah. And it's so much more than just, I mean, we can, we share our stories and we celebrate. I'm often trying to remind myself of this, something that I learned along, and I'm really honest about my mental health journey. And my father passed when I was 3.5. And so we grew up in that. My mom never remarried, but for kids, and your kids have experienced this, right? You open up something
Yeah.
that most people don't open up until much older. And so when I looked back and started to, uncover what mental health looked like, and we looked back over years of maybe needing some therapies and things like that, and I had my faith. I realized, I experienced grief so much younger than, we should.
Mhm.
And I viewed life through that lens. Everything really kind of made me sad. And
Yeah.
so, I got into my 20s and experienced, just a horrific depression.
Yeah.
And what I learned was mourning will always come if you just wait it out. And so I think we forget that we can celebrate or even share our story before morning comes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that, we're all like, everyone loves a feel good story, right? Everyone loves the happy ending,
Yeah.
but there are chunks of our lives that are happening before or after a happy ending. And I want people to be able to, it's not a competition. You can have good moments in bad
Right.
moments. You can have bad moments in good moments. Like, but this is your life.
Right. And I will tell you, first of all, what was your dad's first name?
My dad's name was Howard, but
Howard.
everyone called, my mom met him as Tony. So
Really?
a man of many names.
Tony.
Yeah,
is that how
I knew
you
him as
know him
Tony, but
today? Okay.
knowing I really had my most connection to him from his family. Um, and so they all called him Howard. So I know him as Howard now because I never
Okay.
heard anyone say his name. And
Right.
so when they tell stories, it's always Howard. So it's funny to put it together.
Yeah. No, I get it. But thank you for I didn't know that part of your story. And um it's funny, you used an expression that a lot of people use. They used it for my wife and I, happy ending. You guys got the happy ending, right? You met, you married, and look now. But what we forget is that in my faith tradition, happy endings happen in eternal life. As long as we're still drawing breath here, there's no ending and there's no happy. There's just we're just taking care of each other,
Yeah.
and that's evidenced by the fact that 6 years after I lost or I guess it was 8 years after I lost my wife, now my son is diagnosed
Yeah.
with cancer. You think to yourself, didn't I pay that bill already
Right.
spiritually? Didn't I already cover that?
Yeah.
No, you're going to be revisited with that horror, right? And so, and that goes back to the idea that are you grateful? Are you generosity is an act of gratefulness. It's an act of thankfulness, right? And people, I was married to Kathy for 13 years. Knew her for about 15 years, married for 13. We had 3 children. And so, uh, was it unfair? That's it's the concept of fairness comes up a lot,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so then you start tugging at that thread, right? And the whole sweater comes off, right?
Yeah.
So,
Don't hug that
so,
one. Don't
so,
leave that one
what,
alone.
yeah, well, it's worth mentioning though, because was it unfair that she died at 37 yes, it
Of
was
course.
completely unfair.
Yeah.
It was also unfair that I got to spend 13 years waking up next to her.
Yeah.
What did I do to deserve that?
Yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, I thought, here's the most exceptional woman in the world, and I get to spend every day with her.
Yeah.
Certainly, that's unfair. Is it fair that we were born in the Western Hemisphere in the place that has all the food?
Right.
No, it's not fair. So God's grace is an undeserved and unfair thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is where we, in truth, can you point, we in this part of the world, we tend to equate fairness with good.
Mm-hmm.
Not It's never fair that something bad happens.
Yeah. We forget
And
the
when
other
you
part.
think about that, that's really odd and kind of off. And so if you begin to have a different perspective, a lens of faith, a lens of eternity, you start to realize that these are all gifts. Cancer is evil,
Yeah.
but God can redeem it.
Yeah.
He can restore it. He
Yeah.
can renew it if you open your heart
Yeah.
to him and to what he and how he's going to move in your life. If you remain closed,
Yep.
then that will be a more difficult life.
Yeah.
But if you can remain open to the gifts that and grace that will come your way,
Yeah.
then you can turn the experience of cancer into a gift. How? You can start a foundation that now serves 800 families every year and
Yeah.
change their lives.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and the the fact that, first of all, thank you for sharing that, but also for allowing yourselves to turn that mourning into dancing, right?
Yeah.
And let it be a gift. I think I can't even think of how many hundreds of families that you've helped,
Yeah.
and I've seen some of that journey. But the part that stands out to me is that thought of the grace it's always going to be bigger than the fairness. There is no fair.
Right.
I have a 9-year-old, and so I'm in the very thick of life is kind of hard. Like, he didn't realize that until now. And my husband and I were saying last night, some things happen in school now because he's in 4th grade and everybody has an opinion, and all the boys on the soccer field know exactly the rules, all of them, and not all those rules are the same. So he's had to navigate some things, and he's a sensitive kid, and so he comes home and he's hurt. And I say, I said to my husband, I said, I remember being 9 and
Mhm.
how much I had experienced by then, how much trauma I had experienced. And I watched this guy, and I'm like, my son, it's not fair to little me that I went through all that I went through.
Right.
But my son just lucked out on
Right.
2 parents that love him, and he lives in this safe house, and I created a job that was flexible so I could go to his field trips,
Right.
and you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
and he doesn't worry about food. He doesn't, he said to me the other day, he was opening up his allergy medicine, and he said, Mom, this box says $34.99. Is that how much you paid at Rite Aid for my medicine? I said, yeah, bud, things cost a lot of money. He had no concept of
Right.
how much that was. And I loved that he noticed, right? And
Yeah.
it was like, okay, we're getting there.
Starting to click in.
But that's not fair to him or to someone
Right.
else. And it was just, that those are those pieces, small or large, that I
Mhm.
think it is a reminder that all of the good in our lives is evidence of grace. And that is the grace that I hope that I can give to the world around me.
Yeah, and you can dial back the pedigree of everyone's life and choices, and there are a lot of people who sit back in again in this part of the world who say, well, I earned everything I have, so therefore it's fair and I'm entitled to it and so forth. And you say, yes, you have worked hard. You've had the opportunity to work hard. First of all, you've had the health to work hard.
Yep.
You've had the brains to
Yep.
work hard, and you've lived in a part of the world where working hard rewards you
Yes.
with exceptional wealth and
Yeah.
opportunity. So, um, I think just simply being that it doesn't diminish the work. The work is impressive,
There's
and
still
this
a
and
lot
the
that's outside of your control.
yes,
Yeah.
there's a good amount that you were the recipient of
Mhm.
before you ever arrived on this planet, right? So, I think simply just being aware of those things what that does is creates a little bit more humble spirit, number one, and also it hopefully will provide the soil for people to express their generosity to those the least among us, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah.
And by the way, the least among us doesn't always mean the same person all for the entire life. We all go through seasons of life where I am the least among us right now because
Right.
I've just received a cancer diagnosis, or because I've just been foreclosed on, or I just lost my job, or I suffered I had a family member fall and break their leg and couldn't weight bear for 3 or 4 months, had to rely on the kindness of other family members.
Mm-hmm.
So we all go through seasons of life where we need a little extra from each other.
Yeah.
And if we're inclined to that, then we take care of. Oh, I forgot, because that leads me to something. Margaret Mead was one of the great anthropologists, very famous author and anthropologist, lived, and they they once asked her, "You've studied civilizations and ancient ruins and everything your whole life. Tell us, what what have you found to be the first sign of a civilization? Like, what is the thing that?" And most people thought she was going to say, well, certain tools,
Right.
or the existence of fire, or whatever. She didn't say that. She said, without blinking, she said, when we see evidence of a person who had a broken femur and it healed,
Wow.
and you go, well, what does that have to do with anything? In uncivilized nature, if you break your leg and can't move, you can't hunt, you
Right.
can't gather,
Right.
and you can't run away from predators. If you break a leg, you're done.
Yeah.
Unless someone takes care of you.
Wow.
Someone protects you, someone brings you food.
Yeah.
It is generosity, it is human grace
Yeah.
that is the first sign of civilization. And I just love that.
Oh, that's huge. I mean, with thinking about what we know now and what we experience now, where we call it a lot of different things, right? We call it equity now, and we call it lifting each other up. There's lots of
Yes.
words that people like.
Inclusion. Yes.
Yes, but that's civilization, right?
Yes.
Someone who needs something that I can do.
Nothing could
Generosity.
happen.
Yeah.
Nothing could become organized or civilized on this planet
Right.
until one person decided to take care of another.
Yeah. Isn't that just what Jesus did?
It's foundational to everything. It's
That's
foundational to everything.
Yeah. Whatever faith you have.
Now you can end the podcast
Yeah,
forever. There, we
and
just solved it.
I said sometimes we accidentally solve world problems while we chat. All
I
right.
just thought that was magnificent when I first heard
So glad I've not ever heard that, and that has changed. That has changed my life. I will be saying that to someone else probably before the end of the week, because that is amazing.
Good.
That is so true. Okay, so now's my favorite part of the podcast. I think you should have gotten a note about this ahead of now.
You're dancing?
I don't dance, and if I do dance, it's when we turn off the camera.
Okay.
But I call this podcast "It's Not Just a Tuesday," and really because I believe that every day is not just that day. We're living our lives. We're celebrating something. We're in pain about something. We're experiencing life. And so I ask everyone who comes on to tell me last Tuesday, next Tuesday, what's on your calendar?
Well, last Tuesday was election day.
Yes. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but last Tuesday was election day, and I'm
so maybe we
hope that this is the question.
Oh, really?
Whatever.
How many more hours do we have?
Yeah, right?
I
We just solved the world's problems, so I
here's
think we could talk.
here's my thought on the election. I'm a student and lover of history. I'm not very smart about it, but I love it. and I'm drawn to it. And so I believe that it informs the present and allows us to grow and evolve and get better at this thing called life. Certainly, when it comes to the country, um, we are an idea whose execution has never been better in the world than the 248 years that we've been doing it. Um, the but we are nothing without our institutions. The institutions of this country are vital.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you think they're in good shape or in bad shape, or they're serving our people, or they're robbing from our people, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, they're vital. They must hold together.
Yeah.
Whatever your appeal is. I have 5 children. They're all grown now. They're all in their 20s, and they know that Dad is a junkie for politics and all things history. So when last week's election results were beginning to come in, I'm getting texts late at night from all my kids, and my regardless of anyone's liking the outcome or not liking the outcome, because give or take, we're about split in this country,
We are.
one way or the other. My ultimate response is I have faith in this republic, um, because our institutions have been challenged many times before, including
Yep.
in a civil war.
Yep.
Um, and they have been stretched to their limits by all sorts of greed and corruption and nefarious wars and everything else. So regardless of whether you love what's going on, what the results were, or don't love what the
Yeah.
results were, ultimately, I think that I have faith in our republic,
Yeah.
and mostly because uh, the republic is user dependent. It won't survive without the humanity and humility
Yeah.
and what we just talked about, one person taking care of another.
Right.
It won't survive without that. And so ultimately, I go to Dr. King's. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it it, it bends towards justice.
Yeah.
And so that bend might be greater,
Right.
or it might be less than,
Yeah.
but it still bends
It's like
towards justice, in my opinion. And so, therefore, that's how I spent my last Tuesday. Next Tuesday is Thanksgiving week, and I cook for Thanksgiving for
okay.
our family. Been
Oh,
doing it 35 years.
that's awesome.
I cooked 2 turkeys,
Okay.
homemade stuffing, gravy, the works,
Love it.
and we'll have a house full again. We'll have 20 people, and it's my favorite. I like Thanksgiving more than Christmas now that I'm not a child anymore,
Yeah.
because uh, uh, Thanksgiving comes. It's a great holiday. Everybody gathers. There's
Yes.
no presents with a T. There's only presents with a C.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanksgiving has always been my favorite holiday.
Yeah,
Even I think even as a kid, just because, we didn't have a ton. And so Christmas was always going to be iffy, but Thanksgiving is going to
yeah,
be families all together and you're going to eat great food and there's no pretense and you
right.
don't have to do anything. And so I've had my husband is one of 8 kids. And so
Wow.
Thanksgiving for us is about 37, and I've hosted the last couple of years. Everyone brings something, but I've hosted the last couple of years, and my sister-in-law is doing it this year. But it's just the most amazing day
That's
because
crazy.
usually you don't have to share with too many in-laws. People don't travel as much on Thanksgiving, so where
Yeah,
you are is where everybody's going to come.
yeah.
So we have a really good time.
One Thanksgiving thing that I kind of insisted on, because I'm kind of a freak, and I'm just going to throw this out there because a lot of people have commented on it when we send out pictures of our Thanksgiving. Um, I like everybody at the same table.
Mm,
Now, 37 probably can't be done,
yeah,
but we usually have between 18 and 22,
yeah,
23. And so I would each year I would clear out our family room of the furniture, and I would put one square table so that everybody can see each other.
love that.
Most people have the long table, and the people down here can never see the people down here.
Right. Right.
So it's one big square.
That's cool.
And so if you have the room to make a big
Yeah.
square table and let
We
all
used
your
to be
family,
able to get it one long table, but
really,
now I both my sister-in-law and myself, we have, dining room, family room together. So
yes.
there are, you know, two or
Well,
three 8-foot tables all next to each other. We can usually get everybody in one room if we're
right.
careful.
That's
Which
impressive.
is still, which is still impressive. And just a visibility of, we are blessed
Yeah.
and we are grateful to have
Yep.
space to do that. So
Yep.
that's a perfect juxtaposition with between last Tuesday and next Tuesday.
It is.
I
Yeah.
had
We're,
different
we're all. Yep. We're all coming together that in our favorite week, in our favorite time of the year,
yeah,
and no pressure of anybody going buying anything for each other.
yeah,
Let's just give thanks
yeah.
and just gorge ourselves on food.
Yeah. Well, and I think definitely, because we, just talked about the election, and I think your viewpoint is really great. I want to say this just so that I remember this. People will be spending holidays with people who come from all different spaces,
Yes.
and how important that we remember everything that you and I just talked about,
Yeah.
that we are all figuring out our stories.
Yeah.
We all have different places where we are in our journey. We all have different shades of what we've seen as to be truth in our lives. And that's uncomfortable and that's scary. But if you like turkey, we'll be fine. We can
Yes.
do that. We
All
can,
of that, and Uncle Jim is an idiot. So other than that, no, I'm kidding.
right. Yeah, we got an Uncle
Everybody's got that one guy,
Jim. Yeah.
and if you don't know who it is, it's you.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew.
No,
I'm
that's exactly right. We no, no, nobody's ever changed anybody's mind about such things.
no.
So trying is a fool's an errand,
Yeah.
and better you slather some gravy on and take an extra piece of pie
Yep.
and just go around the table and tell each other, remind each other that you're thankful that you're still there at the table, because there's a lot of folks who are absent from that table,
Yeah.
and time is clicking, and someday we'll all be absent from that table. So let's not spend it at each other's throats over things that no one's going to move their opinion on anyway.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me and sharing
Yeah.
some of your story. I will put your information on this podcast. I know you do a lot of speaking engagements and
Yeah.
like to share both your story and just these amazing insights on how people and humanity and leaders can work better together and see life a little differently maybe than we do. So
Yeah.
I encourage anyone who is looking for just some inspiration to reach out to you and connect.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. It was really great fun. Next time, maybe some refreshments you could have for me here.
Yeah, I mean, it was BYO. I'm good. I gotta, I have a soda right here. Um,
Yeah. Well,
well,
thank you, though. I appreciate the time, and always great fun to talk to you.
great. All right. Well, everyone, It's Not Just a Tuesday. I will see you another Tuesday.